have Maureen, and she has more to share with us.
Okay. Hi, this is Maureen again, and of course I have a 12-year-old with Down syndrome, and I guess the one other question, I appreciate you saying you'll send all that out. Downstairs, last week, we showed up for an APS task force meeting, and it was canceled. And I'd like the department, I'm going to make a formal request here on the record, that the department consider adding the task group and the sub-PAC meeting, because that is where this came out of, onto a public information, send that information out. We have a meeting for the task force on this day. We have a meeting for the sub-PAC this day. Start really engaging. That's what they do with other departments. They include the stakeholders, and including doesn't mean public comment. Okay, and I have to be, I'm still disappointed that we don't have dialogue here. Every other group I've gone to when we work on a bill, it's back and forth, and we don't submit. You don't say to someone, submit language to me. That's not friendly to the layperson. Most people don't know how to. They want to sit down with the bill sponsor. I don't know if is there a representative here from Representative Montaine's office today? There isn't. But usually we sit down with the bill sponsor and the bill drafter, and we come up with new language. You don't put that burden onto the stakeholders. That's not fair, and it's not appropriate. That's something you work through. I would like also to see an HE recommendation come out that we can review, and then also, yeah, that's it. Now, the definition of at-risk on page 3, I just wanted to point out to people, because I got a couple emails from people who are in the disability community, but who are not intellectually and developmentally disabled. And when you read this definition, it's very broad, and it says if you cannot take care of yourself, you're at risk. So that means Stephen Hawking would be an at-risk adult. That means that Carrie Ann Lucas, who is an incredible advocate for our community, would be an at-risk adult.
Yes.
Because you need help doesn't mean you're incompetent or you should be targeted to be incompetent. If you're incompetent and someone will identify you and you can be reviewed, to put that in there is very concerning to me. Also, to have intellectual and developmental disabilities in the definition, I believe it's against the Americans with Disability Act. I'm trying to find an attorney to review that. Because just because someone has an intellectual disability does not mean that they are automatically incompetent. Also on page 3, under the at-risk category, is letter C, communicate. That means that if you can't communicate, that you're at risk. Okay, my son can't communicate. If you have a stroke, you may not be able to communicate, but you might have all your other ability to understand and communicate through alternative means. So I also think that's a question under the Americans with Disability Act, because if you can't communicate, that does not mean that you are automatically higher risk to be incompetent. And then on page 4, line 10, harmful act and omission. We haven't really talked about that too much, so I wanted to hit on that. Harmful act or omission. The way I read this is, if we can't find something that you did that might be abusive or neglectful, we can look at something you didn't do and charge you with that. I think it's way too broad. Way too broad. And I've had some feedback from the community that they feel like this really puts a bigger target on their back. And also, we've got to embrace families that take care of our loved ones. We can't just say, oh, well, because you didn't do something, you're wrong. Okay? That's not how we're going to live in the community. That's against the settings rule from the federal government. I really feel like this bill's been drafted very much from the perspective of adult protective services, without the broader perspective of community living, home, and community-based services. Also with the rights that people have as an adult under statute until you're proven wrong by a judicial process. It's like we're rushing. We're rushing.
I don't mean to rush, but
yeah.
we do have.
Yeah, this is my last one.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can't find something wrong with what you did do, APS will get you on something you didn't do. That's the way I read that. And I also would like to suggest that a follow-up meeting that's publicly posted, but not held here. I had someone turned away because they didn't have an ID today. And I asked that exemption. And it's too bad that that person couldn't participate because they didn't have an ID. It's discriminatory. And people don't always want to get their ID. All right, so someone else want to speak from our webinar?
Thank you. Do we have any additional comments before we